14-year-old Andrew Kasswell of Morrisonville, New York. He studied violin for 8 years, and he'd like to know what part of your musical education most contributed to your success.
You know, I look back at my musical education and I see many parts, and each teacher sort of played a part in my education, and I couldn't have done without any of them. You know, my first teacher was a woman named Donna Nevins, who at the age of 4 I went to her, and she just gave me this love for the instrument right away. You know, she may not have fixed my bow arm perfectly, and I might have gotten into some bad habits, but I think what was important at that time was that I fall for the instrument, and I really did. And soon after that, a few years later, I moved on to Mimi Zweig, who took me back to basics, and she fixed a lot of things and made me do all the etudes and a lot of things that I really couldn't have done without, looking back. And then came Gingold, the musical inspiration that really took me to the next level. He was 70 years old when I met him at the age of 12, and he became my grandfather, sort of. And I saw what an amazing life he had in music, and he encouraged me, and I thought, you know, this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. But all of these people, you know, really had a part in who I am today as a musician.
A fan named Greg Allison of Burlington, Vermont wants to know, what's the last thing you listened to on your iPod?
The last thing I listened to, it would have been last night. I was listening to a recording of Mendelssohn's Italian Symphony with Harnoncourt conducting. And I'm just about to lead the Academy of St. Martin in the Fields on a tour, and one of the pieces that I'm directing and playing is the Mendelssohn Italian, the Fourth Symphony, which I've never done. So I was cheating a little bit and listening to. I was curious how he interpreted the piece. I use my iPod for a lot of things. I mean, mostly classical music. I've got it always filled with the great symphonies and string quartets and things that on the subway I may want to just listen to for sheer pleasure. But I have some things that might surprise some people. I was a huge Genesis fan as a teenager, and even before that, I was introduced by one of my cousins once, and I just got hooked. Genesis seemed to me kind of very connected to classical music. I loved the Beatles. I loved Genesis, and then I listened to jazz, and even sometimes I'll turn on in the morning, salsa music. I love Latin music, which kind of puts me in a good mood. And I went through a phase where I took a few salsa dancing lessons because I thought that would be fun, and I started getting hooked on salsa music.
I have another fan question for you about travel. Donna Nevins of Montreal asks, how much time do you give yourself to experience the place where you're performing?
One of the sad things sometimes when I go to a place, let's say I go to Paris and I come home and everyone asks, how was Paris? What did you see? And I think about it, and often the only answer I have is, well, I had a fantastic steak at this restaurant. Food is the one thing I always manage to find time for. I find a great restaurant and sample great restaurants and investigate them, sort of a hobby of mine. But as far as sightseeing and spending good time getting to know the city, it doesn't always happen. On the other hand, there's not a lot of pressure for that because I know I'll be back, and eventually I get to know these cities. But sometimes it's just one night stop and then off to the next place. But in between concerts, sometimes I'll have a day or two, and that's when I get to do a little of the touristy things and on the road.